So this is one of my favorite parts of the conference. We've been focusing on the class of 2020 for quite some time now, since they were in kindergarten. So, once again, let's check in with them.
I am breaking boundaries.
Estoy dando poder a los estudiantes para ser lo mejor que puede ser.
I am defying expectations.
I came to this country in 2014, on March 2014. I didn't know the area, didn't even know what was in the corner of the street. I was very lost, didn't know the society, so I became homeless.
Anyone who comes in contact with him is really going to benefit. He's going to be an asset wherever he goes. He is just totally committed to any task that he puts his hands on. And I can't imagine what the end game will be for Brian. I just know that it's going to be a great one.
When I hear a parent recognize that I played even the smallest part in the success of their child, you can't, as a teacher, as a person, I can't ask for anything better. It just warms my heart.
Inclusion means not letting anyone be sad or let anyone feel left out. You should always brighten their day or just help them and to have a more cheerful day. It makes me feel that my school is really, really nice and it's just a positive place.
I am whatever I dream I can be.
I can be anything.
I want to make a difference in the world.
I decided to write a children's book focusing on the gender gap in women in STEM. So I wanted the book to give girls the positive attitude that they need in order to go through these obstacles.
I feel like I'm not alone.
I feel supported.
I feel ready for any challenge.
I wouldn't be where I am today, going to college, first in my family, being in this position to be really educated without really awesome teachers. They really connect with me personally. They know who I am, they know my story. They want to get to know me, they want to know who I am, and they use that to kind of push me to become a better student.
I feel inspired. I feel valued.
I feel like I'm part of a community.
Talking to someone across the country, another school across the country, that's pretty big, but talking to someone in a different country, that's huge.
They're ultimately responsible for making a difference in their watershed, and to have that kind of success at 7th grade really is telling them that they can do anything.
It gives you an experience that you can kind of tie into what you will do later in life.
I see dedicated staff throughout the school system.
I see adults that are role models.
I see talented educators in every classroom.
Mr. Johnson is one of the best assistant principals I ever had. He shows that he really cares about us, and he has always helped me through this year. He has showed me what's my full potential.
It's all about your ability to motivate kids. So you have to pull them along, instead of perhaps being able to push them along like you might in an adult job. Yeah, it is a real challenge, but the thing is I love what I do. So be enthusiastic, connect it to the real world, and they'll come along with you.
I am a success story.
I am the future.
I am FCPS.
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 I am FCPS.
Please welcome Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Scott Brabrand.
Good morning, Fairfax County. Woo! How's everybody doing this morning? We got our cup of coffee. We've been well fed. There's still a few people outside. Let them know there's room in the auditorium to come on in. It's so great to be back home in Fairfax. I finished the first year. How about that? Celebrating the joy of being in FCPS, loving the work. I'm so proud of the work that you all have accomplished in schools and in our departments each and every day for students and for teachers, for our parents and our community. I've seen so many great things happening as I've gone out to schools on Fridays, and I want to just give you a little quick look at what we did. 101 schools I visited. Just take a quick look.
Do you guys know who I am?
No, Mrs. Brabrand's husband.
Yes, that is my first and most important role, being Mrs. Brabrand's husband.
You're doing outstanding work. Would you like a snack, beverage?
Sure. Thank you.
From the cart, would you like something to drink?
It's
Water,
just
soda?
just like the airplane.
This is the youngest student in Fairfax County. How about that? How old is he?
Oh, he is 7 months.
You want to do a push-up right now?
Let's do a push-up right now. You want to do a push-up right now?
How many push-ups can you do? Find out. I can, let's go. Ready?
Match.
El rendimiento académico de cada estudiante.
Perfecto, sí.
Muy
Todo
fuerte,
muy
¿ah?
Sí, señor. Ajá,
Okay.
extraordinario. Bienvenido.
Usted conoce. Gracias.
We saw kids using Channel 21 to do a informative video on the whole powerful topic of bullying.
I was a principal in the school where she was a student.
Boom, boom, boom. All right, I'm exhausted.
As I said before, it's great to be back. That young kid, boy, he was a handful. You never know what the job as a principal or administrator involves, and being a superintendent, having him in my lap for more than like 2 minutes, I was getting nervous. I want to talk to you about a couple of the highlights of the year. It was a great year. We had the first fully funded budget in over 20 years in Fairfax County Public Schools. And that happened because of the leadership of this school board, because of the leadership of the new county executive, Brian Hill, and working collaboratively with the Board of Supervisors. We invested in people. Our message was simple: people are the secret sauce here in Fairfax County Public Schools. We did a chance to really relook at our security practices after that terrible, terrible tragedy in Florida, and I want to thank Jeff Plattenberg and Tom Vaccarello and Marty for relooking at our security practices. We're putting in additional training, fixing some locks that needed to be fixed, and really putting in some additional mental health supports for our kids in schools. We mentioned equity last year, and we took a deeper dive, beginning with appointing Francisco Duran as the Chief Academic and Equity Officer. And we didn't just say it in words. We've put an equity liaison in every school and department and an equity specialist in every region. We are going to make equity come alive in each and every part of Fairfax County Public Schools. Finally, we focused on efficiency, continuing to look at how we can do things better. This year, you will see a streamlined teacher evaluation process with less busy work for administrators and teachers and more focus on visiting classrooms and giving people real-time feedback about their glows and grows. And finally, this year we worked on our strategic plan, and now the big unveiling of our strategic plan focus. Hey, it's still a portrait of a graduate. We didn't change the foundation that Dr. Garza and the school board worked on. It is a great plan, Ignite. We've just focused for the next 2 years, going from 38 desired outcomes to 8, an 84% reduction. No one's clapping yet, 80%. Some of you are like, I'll believe it when I see it, but you're about to see it. It's still about focusing all the great things of Portrait of a Graduate: communication, collaboration, goal-directed individuals. It's still about the same buckets of student success, caring culture, that premier workforce, and resource stewardship. But let's talk about first the main underpinning. Again, the strategic focus is the same: student success. What are we saying for student success as our key drivers for the next 2 years? FCPS Pre-K through 12th grade students will continuously progress in their development of Portrait of a Graduate attributes. FCPS will eliminate gaps in opportunity, access, and achievement for students. And all future FCPS students will have access to high-quality early education programs. These are the 3 drivers for student success over the next 2 years. You think you can live with these? I do want you to know this. We talk about Portrait of a Graduate attributes for all kids, and that is the ceiling. You know, and every kid deserves a house, right? And in a house, there's a floor and there's a roof. Sometimes this whole discussion between Portrait of a Graduate and SOLs, is it one or is it the other? Folks, SOLs, there has been toxic testing, but the standards of learning, standards for children to reach, does form the foundation, foundational literacy, foundational math that are important for every child. So I don't believe it's a false choice. I believe it's a false choice between SOLs and Portrait of a Graduate. Done right, they can be integrated. Every kid can have the floor of SOL standards with the ceiling reaching for all those Portrait of a Graduate attributes that we need. If we follow our learning model, which I'm going to share with you in a minute, if we really let our teachers engage students, if we look at the rich, wonderful pacing guides that Sloan Presidio and his department have developed for us, we can have success with both SOLs and with Portrait of a Graduate outcomes. Let's take a look at some of the tools that we're going to use to do all that Portrait of a Graduate work and to eliminate those gaps. First of all, we have the learning model. Folks, this is just about skillful teacher updated 20 years later. It's about quality Tier 1 instruction for every child. And undergirding these things of plan, teach, assess, and reflect are about getting our teachers together in PLCs and CLTs. I don't care what you call them. I know we had that debate 10 years ago. Just be sure that our teachers are doing that collaboration. And then I expect that same level of collaboration among you all as school leaders and among the departments and you all working together. But it's about, in the learning model, the learning center environment, looking at what work the student is doing. In some cases, if you walk in a classroom, the teacher's doing all the work. You want to put your eye on what that student is doing. Are they doing standards-aligned work, either working on it or talking about it? Looking at a purposeful assessment, and that's about frequent assessments. Frequent formative assessments are a key driver in how all kids can achieve. At the end of every day's instruction, what's the exit ticket? What's the journal? What's the criteria for success? Make sure you see purposeful assessment. And popping in for 5 minutes, you may not be able to see it. You may need to ask a teacher to see it. You need to be in classrooms, though, to be able to do any of this. You need to be in classrooms, as I focused on. If I can spend one of my Fridays every week being in schools, you can find the time. And I know it's hard. We got to keep doing things to reduce the meetings and more time for you to be meeting teachers and students where they are in those classrooms. The other thing, concept-based curriculum. Look at the pacing guides. I remember when I started as a teacher, you know what the pacing guide was? About 5 pages, teach government. There's 3 branches. I had an adaptive course for ELL students, and they gave me a 4th grade elementary school book. Good luck. And by the way, you speak Spanish, that should help. I'm like, not all the kids in that class are Spanish speakers. Oh, well, you'll figure it out. The work, and it was honestly Fairfax changing. This was new. We've been at it over 20 years now. We have rich pacing guides. Look at the elementary stuff that's being done now, like in science, folks. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. You be sure you're going in classrooms and seeing those pacing guides come alive. That is rich. It's rich concept-based curriculum. And then meaningful learning experiences, making learning relevant for kids. Do that learning model. Now you might be going, Scott, I don't even know what the learning model is. It's time to start learning about the learning model. This is a key tool to drive us for success. The next big part of how we're going to get there with student success is the Closing the Achievement Gap framework. It's a wonderful framework. There's 6 elements on there you can see. Relationships. You heard all those kids talking about the power of relationships, academic support, access to rigor. Let me tell you something. We need to continue to push kids to give them the most challenging curriculum in which they can be successful. I don't care whether a kid's in an AAP center or this regular school, give them access to the most rigorous curriculum. We can give AAP curriculum to every kid. Every kid. Don't wait. I told the school board this fall, the best principals already give that good curriculum to all those kids. Don't hold back. We have larger issues to look at about how we sort and separate kids, but we do. We do. It's only been a year, folks, so give me a little time. But don't wait for me or the school board to figure it out. Continue to move forward and give kids the most rigor they can. These kids in middle and high school, I told my folks at the school district I was in for 5 years, if a kid's in a class making all A's or A's and B's, push them to the next level. At least have a conversation, encourage them. Now, there's a little nuance here. Some of our kids are already over-encouraged. That's where that pressure and stress comes from. But some kids have never been reached out before. They've never been reached out to say, hey, I think you can do more. Make sure you're creating conditions in your schools where we're giving that kid that needs it that extra push. Hey, you can do this work. And sometimes our teachers have to just have a moment to see it, to believe it. Every school in Fairfax who has done this hasn't seen scores go down. They've gone up, and the climate and culture in the building has gotten stronger. Continue to encourage that access to rigor. College and career readiness, family and community engagement. Another big part of closing the gap. Folks, we have got to do more. I know you feel like you already do a lot, but we've got to continue to meet the community where they are. Sometimes it's going to be in schools. Sometimes it's going to be in community centers. I just met with a big faith-based group. Sometimes it's going to be in churches or mosques, mosque or synagogues. We got to go where the people are and make the connections where they feel comfortable. Not everybody's comfortable walking into a school. We've got to do it. I had a 3rd grade teacher tell me in Lynchburg, Scott, I did 2 things. One, I started to do my word study tied more to authentic text. She went from like 30 or 40% kids passing to 90% or more success. She said, I did 2 things, word study with authentic text, and I did a home visit to every child. A home visit. Yeah, I know. We've done a little bit of that. Remember, Roberto Palmas would go and do home visits and all, that's nice. But have we systematically looked at those kids that need that home visit? And even the kids that maybe don't need it, to connect. People, you know what? I saw George Stepp last week, and he said, Paula Johnson challenged him and said, when are you going to pick up the phone as principal and call 5 parents a week just to say, hey, how are you doing? How can we do better? And this was in the 80s. And he said the parents would go, why are you calling? Is this about discipline? Is this about something else? No, I just want to see how are we doing with your, and it gets out in the community. Now, some of you are thinking, once I do it for 5, I got to do it for everyone. Start somewhere. Reach out. People will meet you halfway, but we need to engage our families and community. There are some who have lost trust in FCPS, and it's time to gain it back. And only through engagement will it happen. Continuing to work to get kids ready to learn, which means our teachers need to be ready to teach. All of this work around closing the achievement gap framework. If you've never looked at this, right, we've had it on the website. It's time to take the deeper dive and check to see if your school's strategic plan aligns with the work around the closing the achievement gap framework and around the learning model. Those are going to be 2 key drivers. And as you heard the Secretary Carney talk about, and Karen Corbett Sanders, our school board chair, One Fairfax, the school board and board of supervisors, talking about making equity front and center. It's really about every child by name and by need. Every child, not that child or this child, every child. And part of that, we're working with the county to create more opportunities for kids to have quality early learning experiences. We've had wait list folks for years. Come on. Some of our parents with means get into the best and greatest. I mean, some of that stuff going on at 2 and 3 years old, and some kids have nothing. That's not right anywhere, and it's certainly not right in Fairfax County. We need to do more, though, of course, after student success. To create that student success, we need a culture, an inclusive culture that is a caring culture. We can move on to the next slide. There we go. What are we going to do with caring culture? With caring culture, we're going to have FCPS employees demonstrating cultural responsiveness when supporting families, students, and other staff. And we're going to have FCPS use best practices to enable students and staff to make healthy life choices. Now I'm going to talk about cultural responsiveness in a minute. Let me talk first about helping make students and staff make healthy life choices. One thing, and I've told you before, leaving and coming back, and I told you my boys saw this in the first month. I'm like, how's school going? I gotta be honest, it was a tough transition to come back for my boys, right? They were finishing middle school, they came back, but they said, gosh, Dad, some of the kids here are stressed. We have stressed students, we have stressed teachers, we have stressed administrators, we have a stressed community. And we've got to work morning, noon, and night to figure out how to diffuse some of that. We're not gonna get rid of all of it, folks. We live 12 miles from the nation's capital, and it's almost, and I love this country, but the nation's capital can be a stress-inducing moment every moment, right? We've always had a type A culture in Northern Virginia. We have. It attracts people who are type A, and guess what? I'm type A too. But you gotta figure out how you can be a joyous type A, right? We gotta bring joyful type A. What are we doing? We're going to expand the multi-tiered systems of support. Teresa Johnson did a great principals in service on that with her team. And Teresa Johnson, she's doing a great job as the Assistant Superintendent of Special Services. All of this work, we've been doing academic interventions for years, folks, but we need to have that same focus on interventions for social, emotional, and mental health needs for kids. And we're gonna do it. I mentioned we're streamlining the teacher evaluation process to make it easier. We don't need to keep going back in teachers' classrooms and asking them to fill out paperwork when we already can tell they are successful, high-quality teachers doing great work for kids. That's gonna help you some. And I want to remind you that we need to remind our staff about the resources we already have. We have EAP. Yes, we have EAP. We have caring people at the school. Sometimes we just have to have the courage to step forward and say, hey, I need help. We sometimes still have a place where no one wants to admit I need a little extra help. Now I want to move on about this concept of cultural responsiveness. Some of you might be going, where this I am idea is coming from. You saw it in the video and the kids talking up here at the beginning. I am is a technique. It's a way to begin, but not finish, a conversation about equity. We have to, in Fairfax County Public Schools, create space. That's what we have to do first, create space, safe space, for courageous conversations about equity in this school system. And that's hard, right? We're in a very highly engaged place, highly politicized. And equity means different things to different people, right? How do we get common ground around that? And how do we help to understand each other? I'm really proud of the work that Kathleen Waltz and her Office of Professional Learning and Family Engagement has done around cultural proficiency. Nina Thomas, Nina in here, Nina? Where are you? I can't find you, but hopefully you're here. And Her and her folks are doing a great job. We had the first module around cultural proficiency that really was just bringing awareness of the topic. We completed that. Now we're on to module 2. Over 17,000 of our employees have had it. I'm proud to say I got to be a part of that, and it really focuses on identity, who you are. And at the heart of this is trying to make sure before understanding who you are can help you start to understand who someone else is. And sometimes we have biases. We make assumptions about who somebody is. For example, I am a talker. But I am also a person who could not pronounce even my first name when I arrived at kindergarten at Palmer Elementary in Newport News in 1973. I needed a speech therapist for 3 years. She overdid it, I know, but I am a co-valedictorian of my high school, but I am also a kid that in 3rd grade in Newport News, I was denied getting into the AAP center of that school. I remember so clearly, it was the end of the school and they brought the letters in. You look at the things that we do to kids, brought the letters in. And I felt like everyone else got the letter and it was a gold letter. If it was good, it was gold. Remember Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? And I opened mine was white. And the bottom line was, you did okay, but not good enough. What? I am a superintendent. Yes, you are. But I am not more important than anyone else in this room. We are equal in our dignity. We are equal in our role of what we need to do to drive this system. This is not a superintendent system where one person's going to be Superman or Superwoman, though Francis Ivey is going to be a great deputy superintendent. It is every one of you. And the more we do the I am and the I am not, the more we can break down barriers that have kept us apart. So you give this I am a try in your own school, your own office, and find out maybe stuff you don't even know. Some people have worked together 25 years and they don't know the person. Make sure about one other thing. We had our leadership team together, and I want to just say this on equity. Sometimes people think we got to have trust. You know, if I say this and trust, there's professional trust that comes in doing the work together. And there's the personal trust, like I want to tell you what I did on Friday night, or, you know what I mean, or who my buds are, or, you don't have to have that. You don't have that with everyone. Even our leadership team said, we have a diverse leadership team. We don't need all that. That may come and it may not come, but we must have the professional trust of having the courage to talk about equity and saying I disagree or I see it differently. Unless we understand everyone's stories, we're not going to get this equity conversation right. So let me move on. To have a caring culture, we have to have the premier workforce in the Commonwealth of Virginia and in the United States of America. And honestly, we have had the best and brightest year after year in Fairfax County Public Schools. And part of making sure we do that is offering market competitive salaries for everybody. We revised all the scales last year, all of them. The average teacher got a 6.6% salary increase. Now, I know some of you are going, well, that wasn't my increase. No, you didn't get as much as the teachers. But we did checking with the market, and the market was clear. We have been underpaying our teachers for too long in Fairfax County Public Schools. We have. We also agree with Premier Workforce. We're going to pay our folks to do great work, but we're going to continue to work to recruit, hire, and retain exceptional employees. And we need exceptional employees who bring passion to their work and who connect with our diverse group of kids. And that's why it is still so important that we have hiring practices that commit us to continuing to find a diverse workforce to work with our diverse student body. And we're going to continue to do that work. We redesigned our teacher hiring process this past year, and we will continue to reflect on how we can do that. We also redesigned our principal pool. So I want to see all the assistant principals stand up, please, right now. All the assistant principals, where are you? Woo! You can sit down. Now we know you're already doing the principal work anyway. The pool just opened. The pool is open. It closes on the 4th, and I encourage all of you to get involved. It's something new. When it's new, there's glows about it. There's some grows. We can make some tweaks. But it's all in the notion of trying to get better and better and ensure we have a premier workforce in our classrooms and in our leadership in schools. So continue to do that work. I want to say one more thing before we leave premier workforce. We want exceptional employees, but we do not want employees whose actions and choices do not align in the best interest of kids. I expect every employee in this county, in this school system, to have integrity beyond reproach. And that starts by following our own policies, our own procedures, and following the law. That is the minimum. Our communities have put sacred trust in us to have their kids. We have to listen to what the kids are saying and respond appropriately and follow the facts wherever they go. We cannot put adult friendships and convenience beyond what is in the best interest of kids. And I got to tell you about harassment and discrimination, which is going on in the whole country, and we're not immune either. Harassment and discrimination between kids and teachers, or teachers and kids, between teachers, between administrators and teachers. For anyone, harassment and discrimination will not be tolerated in Fairfax County public schools. Please be sure, we've had our Leaders Need to Know sessions. We've talked about Title IX. We've talked about bullying and harassment and that database. I expect you to do the work around those issues with fidelity and with doing what is best for kids. And remember, kids, sometimes kids say a lot of things. You have to do the due diligence. There could be something, just the kid's story isn't just automatically right, or the teacher's story. There's always multiple sides, but we cannot turn our eyes away and avert when people are coming forward and we are hearing things. We have a moral responsibility to do the right thing for kids. All right, let's move on beyond our employees to talk about resource stewardship. We continue to need to be sure in our budgeting and allocations that we maximize FCPS effectiveness and efficiency. I've talked about the effectiveness piece last year. That is one of the key E's. We're going to continue in our budget to focus on people over programs. We are going to continue to focus on paying for the very best. We need to be sure our schools and our departments have the tools necessary to deliver high-quality education to all of our kids and families. But we have to be strong stewards of taxpayer dollars. I ask you to ask this every day. Is this the best way to do this? Some things, folks, we've been doing the same thing for 25 years. Some things we've changed. But a lot of things, well, that's the way we've always done it. I don't want to change it just to change, right? We don't want leadership changing just to change, just to say, I can change it. But what needs to be changed because it's the right thing to do? Is this expense necessary? Is it a necessary expense? And maybe even a more powerful question, is it an equitable expense? Are we spending our resources where they need to be spent so that we can meet the needs of every child? And finally, does this advance the strategic plan? You've just seen the new 8 desired outcomes of the strategic plan. Ask yourself, is the work that you're doing and the resources that we're devoting, Is it drawn around that strategic plan? I know as leaders of an organization, if we do that, we will be in a better place than we are now. So how do we make all this happen in the strategic plan? 8 desired outcomes. I know I talked to you last year about, juggling the ball in a circus. Now 38, I don't know anybody who's ever juggled 38. 8's still a lot. But 8 over the next 2 years, I believe this strategic plan gives us the focus necessary. Gives us the focus necessary to do these things that we're asking all of you to do. But how do we do this? It takes a vision, and folks have said, Scott, well, what's your vision? We've heard visions from different superintendents. To be honest, the vision is already here. I don't have to recreate the vision. The vision is already here. The work that you all have already done and this board has done, this community has done around Portrait of a Graduate. My vision is simply this: portrait of a graduate for all, access and opportunity for all, and achievement gaps for none. Portrait of a graduate for all, access and opportunity for all, achievement gaps for none. Now, some of you will go, oh my gosh, achievement gaps. We've been talking about 20 years of achievement gaps. We have eliminated achievement gaps in certain schools in Fairfax County over the last 25 years. We have. It is time to do that systematically. And the biggest challenge in Fairfax County Public Schools is making sure that we have excellence, the same standard of excellence, the same standard of equity, and the same standard of effectiveness are the case in every single classroom and every single school in Fairfax County. That's the challenge. So how are we going to do this? Folks, my vision of doing it is simply flipping the pyramid. Our students, what Bud used to say, Bud Spillane, for those of you who just came in the last, 20 years, Bud Spillane said the main thing is to keep the main thing the main thing. He was right then and he's right now, God rest his soul. Put students first, then the teachers and support staff, then our school and department leaders who support them in schools. And make no mistake, all the research says the leadership in a building or department is the next greatest determinant of student achievement beyond the quality of the teacher in the classroom. Then we need to have a strong leadership team that supports that work system-wide, and we need to have a superintendent. Or I guess we need, maybe one day in the future, we'll innovate. Jack always said, Scott, create a situation where they don't even need you. I'm like, if they don't need me, then I won't have a job, Jack. But there is something to the superintendent has a role, but I have one role among many. And behind me is the school board working collaboratively with me. We're a team of 13. And yes, we can have differences, and there have been differences over the years, but it's time to spend more time working together and energy working together than trying to be driven apart. And we're working more collaboratively as a team with the school board and the school board with the board of supervisors, all because we want to keep that focus on our kids. You know, when I grew up here in Fairfax, people would talk about, the house of Fairfax, the house that Bud Spillane built. And then when Dan came in, the house that Dan Dominich built. And then the house that Jack built. The house that Karen built. We've talked about all these I am statements. I am a man. I am not a handyman. I cannot build a house. My first year of marriage, my wife, we went down to Atlanta to be with my mother and father-in-law, and they had a Christmas present for me. I unwrapped it. It was Time Life books, How to Be a Handyman. I've never opened it. My role in leading equity and excellence and effectiveness in Fairfax County schools isn't going to be as a handyman who can build a house. That's not my gift. That's not my skills. But I think working together, we can make the FCPS house a home. a home where we all feel supported and cared for and loved, and that our focus is on loving those kids, loving them on their best days and on their worst days. But that young man said, I see role models. We have to be role models for the love and care that we want to see our kids demonstrate. I've just got this book. I think Karen Corbett Sanders actually recommended it to me. The Book of Joy. It's a great new book by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, who I got to see once when I was in college. My roommate was Buddhist and said, you gotta go. And from Archbishop Desmond Tutu. Many of you know, and the book is called Joy. How do we live a life of joy in the face of adversity? Life does have adversity. There are struggles. Many of you have had struggles. We all have had struggles. Many of you know the Dalai Lama has been in exile for over 40, 50 years. 1959, he was moved out of Tibet as the Chinese authorities came in. Archbishop Desmond Tutu was part of the apartheid struggle in South Africa, saw his friend Nelson Mandela 27 years in jail, and came out still a joyous man. And so a journalist brought these two sacred folks together for a week at the Dalai Lama's residence in exile. And they wrote this book just called The Book of Joy. It's very powerful. I got one chapter or two left. The bottom line for them is every moment is a gift. They're both Nobel Peace Prize winners, by the way, and so they don't see each other a lot, but the Nobel folks bring the different prizes. I never knew this. They brought all the prize winners and they come back and get together, sort of like a leadership conference for Nobel Prize winners, right? So they see each other over the years. They're both in their 80s now. Here were the three factors that they shared. Your ability to reframe a situation more positively. I've already had people this year go, gosh, you seem happy. I mean, like after a few months, I'm not supposed to be happy. It is okay to be a happy superintendent, a happy principal, a happy leadership team member, a happy AP. And we need to give ourselves permission. Now, there are going to be people who walk in every day. And let me tell you, in the soup's office, Chris can tell you some stories. Not everybody walks in happy. Some people are very unhappy. But sometimes what we've got to watch, and both of them talked about it, is not personalizing, not internalizing somebody else's unhappiness or anger, and then hardening our own hearts and making us angry or making us unhappy. Reframing the situation more positively. Also, the ability to experience gratitude, to be thankful. Folks, I wake up every day and I say, thank you for letting me be a part of the Fairfax County family. I told you, I left. I saw other places. I'm serious. We do not appreciate what we have here. And sometimes we've got to help show our students, our parents, our community, and one another what we have. We can still be better. That doesn't mean we're perfect. It's not an excuse to do nothing. But it is a commitment that as we work together, we have gratitude. We have grace for each other of what we do have here. So many places around this country, this Commonwealth, around the world, have a fraction of what we have to be able to work and do with kids. And then finally, one of their last point is, you have a choice every day, folks, every day to be kind and generous. And you know what happens? Sometimes somebody is not kind to you, so you don't want to be kind to them. Or someone's not generous to you. Well, I don't want to be generous to them. It starts to affect you. I'm not going to tell you that there aren't going to be moments when you feel hurt or betrayal or anger or sadness, but I am telling you it's your choice of how you are going to react. You have a choice to be kind and generous. When I was in college, I took a theology course at Georgetown. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. He was in the Holocaust, in a concentration camp, seeing evil up front every day. What allowed him to survive? There was a moment in the camp one of the Nazi soldiers brought in for one of the weakest folks that Viktor Frankl was observing, brought in a breadcrumb. And when Viktor Frankl saw that breadcrumb, it changed. He said, in the midst of the horror of horrors, someone was made a choice to show grace and gratitude and kindness. We have that same choice to do each and every day in Fairfax County. So in closing, I say to you this: my bottom line is joy, love, and trust, support for everyone, every day. And on behalf of a joyful superintendent, have a joyous school year. Take care and see you soon.